welcome back to another season of Hunt for the Harvest, brought to you by Shop Outdoors Land Management. Welcome back to our Hunt for the Harvest series, guys. Today we are scouting. We're in the middle of September, and I really like being intrusive one last time. Might not scour all the bedding areas, but I'm definitely going to be looking for that acorn crop. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about right here. We're going to be scouting and marking out red oaks and white oaks, and we'll be trying to figure out some early season stand locations. We do have a lone wolf currently up on a ridge top. It's in an area that's loaded with red oak and white oak, which is great. It'll be an early season food source and a late season food source. We'll discuss the benefits of both and what you guys can be looking for this time of year. Acorns are just one of those things come October that deer prefer. Even if you do have a really good fall food plot, or there's still ag in the fields, it just seems like this time of year, everything's drying out and deer get sucked in the timber. They're stripping velvet. It's time for them that's, it's sensitive, but at the same time, there's a big shift going on. Therefore, leaving, a pretty good opportunity for you to get in an area that you think is a fall range or is a fall range. And if you bump a few deer, it's not the end of the world. But, come October, it probably will be. So now's the time to get in there, get boots on the ground, be scouting your white oaks, red oaks, see which ones are dropping, which ones aren't, and tag that, see if that's an area that you can, hang a set. Is it somewhere you can access easily? If it's not, is it still a high odd spot? Might be an area you go, once or twice, maybe, middle to late October. So right behind me here, we've got a couple white oaks down in this river bottom, and wanted to check these real quick. Doesn't look like either one of these trees has acorns on it. The acorn crop this year is unbelievable though. Probably the best I've seen in a long time, which is crazy because we're dealing with severe drought. So must not have any effect on the mass producing trees, because it's not just the oak trees either. Anything that is mass producing, it is dropping like crazy this year, minus a handful of these white oaks here. These are some really young, small white oak trees, ones that have the potential to be a really good tree. We just need to do a crop tree release around this thing. A lot of honeysuckle right here, and a lot of hackberry trees and walnut trees shading it out. They're keeping this white oak here from its potential. So not only are we scouting right now, but we're also marking out areas. If you guys are hunting private ground, I know public ground, this won't help you out, but if you're hunting private ground, this is the time of year to go ahead and mark what trees are producing, what trees are not producing, and then try to figure out why. The foliage is, at an all-time high. Here soon, everything's going to dry out. It's going to defoliate. It's going to be a little bit harder to tell what trees are shading out other trees. So this is the best time to get out here, summertime or late summer, early fall, and figure out, what trees possibly need removed. Now right here, I've got a red oak. This red oak's producing really well. It does have a couple junk trees around it. Actually some hedge over there that I could remove, and a couple more hackberry trees. This river bottom here is just absolutely loaded in hackberry trees. So probably remove a lot of those. There's also quite a bit of maple in here. Might remove some of that as well. But we're gonna head up the ridge. We're gonna show you guys what we're looking for and how to identify white oak versus red oak. White oak's gonna be, kind of your candy crop early season. The tannin levels are lower in it. They're gonna seek that out over the red oaks. But that being said, don't overlook red oak trees. It's still a really good food source, and it's something come middle of November to late season, they're going to be seeking them out. So just because they don't hit them over white oaks early doesn't mean that it can't be a really good food source. Another thing to think about is if you're in an area that has red oaks and white oaks, you got food source for the whole season. I mean, that might be a spot you come in October, and then, you know, during the rut, maybe you've got some good bedding areas, some transition routes, you know, some areas where you know doe bedding is. We'll go hunt those during the rut, lay off that spot you were in October, and then come back later in November, or, you know, after post rut. Coming in December, I've hunted them in January, and I've had really good success with bucks coming in and hitting those acorns in January as well, when a lot of the food sources have already been wiped out. So we're gonna head up the ridge, show you guys what we're looking for. We're gonna be putting a couple batteries and some cell cams, and maybe find some new stand locations. Last year's leaves. So really easy way to tell if a tree is a red oak or a white oak is gonna be the lobes itself. The red oaks have bristles on the end, and the white oaks don't. The white oaks would be a rounded lobe, where the red oak will have that bristle. That is one of the easiest ways to identify them. Obviously, you can use the bark. You can use the acorn itself. The bark, in my opinion, is a little bit tough. There are different types of red oaks and white oaks. You'll want to, you know, either use a tree ID or talk to a local forester, and, you know, they can point you in the right direction, help you out with the identification. I'm constantly studying this stuff and trying to get better at it myself, because I want to know when I come in an area, whether it's early season, late season, if that's a spot that I should hit or not. You know, if it's just dominated in red oak trees, I'll probably save that spot, throw a stand up, have a preset stand, and maybe come back to that spot later. Or if it's dominated in white oaks, it's probably gonna be somewhere I'm gonna hit early. A little tip for you. Okay, so we're on this hillside here, picking up tons of different types of acorns. When it comes to figuring out whether it's a red oak or a white oak, one thing that's helped me out, or at least pointing me in the right direction, is oftentimes white oak will be a little bit like scalier with flaky bark, where a red oak is going to be super hard and solid. And sometimes I almost say smooth. It's not really smooth, it still has grooves, but it just looks like the tree is just like stretched out, where the white oak's going to be flaky. There's a lot of white oaks along this ridge here on this hillside. So this is one of those areas where you're going to probably want to come hunt early season. If you have a spot in here where you can access, you know, instead of coming right where I'm at, here's a logging trail here, creek access down there. You probably want to come up that creek access and set up somewhere right in here. You could use an east wind will be blowing that way, a north wind's blowing this way. You could even do a northeast down the hill, and you could target anything bedding up on this ridge top. I can hear acorns dropping everywhere. So, tip for you guys as far as identifying bark. I'll show you some red oaks when we get up top. It's just one of those things, when you know the difference between the two, then you know what time of year to target that area. Super helpful, gets overlooked a lot. I love running trail cameras, but that being said, you need to know where to put those cameras at certain times of year, and that's going to be based on, you know, what food source they're seeking out. So you can't just willy-nilly go in there. Still have to be able to identify, you know, what the quality food source is at that time, where deer are entering, exiting, and how the heck you can hunt these suckers. Another thing, guys, if you're hunting private ground, something I've started implementing on this farm that has been super beneficial is opening the canopy. You can see I got sunlight in here. Forest floor's got vegetation now. If you work your way down this ridge, you can see where that fire break stops, because there's no understory whatsoever, no native vegetation, it's just closed canopy. So I really like this. I've created an edge along here. Got a really good stand location I can use for a north wind. Catch them coming out of the bedding along this ridge here. Just a little tip for you guys. Come in, figure out what trees need to be removed based on the canopy up here. If you've got some undesirable stuff, I got rid of some hackberry, some maple. Not saying that, you know, maple's undesirable, but at the same time I was willing to part ways with some of the maple to increase the production of mass producing trees up here. And hopefully, you know, in the future we'll have more acorns dropping. This has been traditionally a spot where I've caught some really big ones cruising. Killed my biggest buck not too far from here. Same thing, it was late season. He was cruising, probably eating acorns, seeking out them red oaks, and also was chasing a doe fawn. So another little tip. We won't get into that today, but we can have another discussion about, you know, deer once they reach, you know, a doe fawn reaches 90 pounds. She'll come into estrus that first year and can also create some really good hunting opportunities. So I'll show you guys here. That one's dead, unfortunately. We did have a couple red oaks up here die off, but we'll show you. Let's find one that's, here we go, here's one. Show you a red oak here. The difference in the bark. See how it's not flaky, it is really, really hard. It's a big old oak. But there's a mixture of red oak and white oak up here. And what that does is it tells me that this is going to be a good spot early and late season. And I might be able to come in here and target this spot multiple times. So as long as I'm not pressuring it a bunch, I'm allowing these deer to feel comfortable moving in and out of here, I'm going to have a few opportunities to hopefully get on some big ones up in this area. So we're going to go ahead and throw this battery pack in this cell cam, do a little more scout, and we'll show you guys what we're looking for. Then we'll probably wrap this thing up for the day. Definitely glad to get some scouting in, and need to get this knocked out, because once those deer get out of velvet, I mean, they're going to be shifting pretty quickly. Definitely don't want to be up here bumping deer. Alright guys, last thing I'm looking for while I'm up here is just going to be any fresh sign, anything new, telling me whether deer have started to make a shift or not. You know, don't expect to really see any pawing or anything, but they'll definitely be working communal scrapes, you know, as far as licking branches and vines. You can look and see if any new branches are bent or broke off. That'll tell you at least they're reaching up at them. Also, you know, definitely look for rubs. Once they're stripping out of velvet, you've seen plenty of rubs late September, so no reason not to look while you're already in the woods. The more you can learn, the better. While I'm looking for white oaks and red oaks, I'm going to be looking for, you know, big tracks. Figure out what trail systems they're using, if there are any trails mowed down already or not. And then the last thing is always going to be stand locations. Just because, you know, you've got preset stands doesn't mean you're not going to have to move during season. If you're willing to be mobile, that's the best way to get on big deer. I preset a lot of stands, but oftentimes I probably only hunt about maybe, you know, 10-20% of them. They usually wind up tearing stands down, moving them, or leaving that stand, and maybe that'll be a future spot. But in the meantime, while I'm already out scouting, I need to figure out where the next best spot's going to be. So those are some tips for you guys. Thanks for tuning in on this week's episode. They'll be picking corn here pretty soon, so these fields will get cleaned out, and the deer are going to get sucked into the timber. And when October comes around, you want to know what white oaks and red oaks to hunt under. And I think I've already got my stand locations pretty well picked out. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you on the next one.